and drama at Royal Holloway, and is currently playing the lead in Woman in Black down the road, so I've nabbed him. I was completely delighted when Edith mentioned speaking about Richmal Crompton, who is best known and much loved as the creator of William Brown, Just William. She brought endless pleasure to my childhood, and I'm sure to many other people's. I used to go to sleep every night with my Walkman on, my most prized possession, listening to Kenneth Williams reading the Just William stories, until eventually I wore the tapes out. We have a complete set still in our house, taking up a whole bookshelf. Richmal Crompton Lamburn was the daughter of a schoolteacher curate, and she was born in 1890 in Lancashire. It amazes me how much her books still feel fresh now when you think about quite how long ago she was writing. From there, she won a scholarship to Royal Holloway College to study classics, and ended up graduating in 1914 with a BA Honours degree in classics, second class. And she was also involved in the women's suffrage movement while she was at the university. She returned to St Albans as a classics teacher in 1914. She was known as Ray to her family and friends, and she then moved to Kent to live near her married sister and was a much-loved classics mistress at Bromley High School. She published her first short story in 1918 using her mother's maiden name, Crompton. But then in the summer of 1923, she was tragically struck by a serious attack of polio, and she completely lost the use of her right leg. This resulted in her having to give up her career as a classics teacher, and she then turned to writing. William was born in a story called Rice Mould, published in the Home magazine in 1919. The superlative popularity of William convinced the publishers to print William in book form, and the first of the books appeared in 1922. Crompton's love of classics and classical education shines through all of her work. In one of the first stories, William in Trouble, the Archaeological Society are excavating nearby. William's not impressed.
I always knew there was something fishy about those Romans. Their language is enough to put you off to start with. Hick, hike, hop, and all that stuff like that. And then we're supposed to think them great and all they did was bury broken bits of pots. I never liked them. I'd rather have pirates or red Indians any day.
William's grasp of antiquity was always gloriously off-kilter, but perhaps terrifyingly honest.
If any of you are thinking of going to the British Museum, I can jolly well tell you it's not worth going to. It's full of great, huge, broken statues and nothing else. You'd think they'd have got someone to mend them up a bit, wouldn't you? Or else thrown them away and got some new ones. I soon had enough of going around with my aunt, and my aunt saying the date they were made and who made them and things like that. And soon I met another boy going around with his aunt, and his aunt telling him the date they were made and who made them and that sort of thing.
Richmal Crompton never had children of her own, but she was a very loved and very formidable aunt. When William finally started to learn Latin in the William books, it wasn't a glorious success, though his formidable eloquence was developing. It's a wonderful passage. His mother says to him, "Look at this hole."
Oh, that.
"I don't know why you go through your stockings like this."
Perhaps it's Latin.
How do you mean Latin?
Well, you see, all this Latin I've got to learn must make my brain jolly heavy, and, well, you carry your brain on your feet, don't you, same as the rest of your body, and if I stopped learning Latin, my brain wouldn't be as heavy as what it is now, and, well, I shouldn't go through my stockings so much. Can I stop learning Latin?
No, dear, don't talk such nonsense. In Richmal Crompton's lifetime, 30 collections of William's stories sold over 8 million copies. William has conquered print, audio, theatrical, television and internet media, with most recently a BBC adaptation that's currently running, and children are loving it as much now as they ever did. The William phenomenon lasted for 48 years, and for 45 of those, Crompton was always at work on 2 books simultaneously, one for children and one for adults. Starting with The Innermost Room in 1923, she wrote 41 novels for adults and published 9 collections of short stories. The Innermost Room, The Hidden Light, Millicent Dorrington, The Four Graces, Blue Flames, Portrait of a Family, The Odyssey of Euphemia, Tracy and The Inheritor. If you've never read any of her work for adults, read one of her novels now. She writes with humanity and wit, and a classicist's breadth of cultural understanding, a classicist's mythological discourse, a a classicist dialogue with both the ancient and modern world. Mary Cadogan produced a very warm biography, Richmal Crompton, the woman behind William, in 1986, although she calls her subject something of a biographer's nightmare, since she found it impossible to find anyone who had anything unkind to say about her. There's a charming story in the biography. During the Second World War, she shared a taxi with a mother and a small boy.
In the course of the journey, the mother mentioned the boy was anxious to reach home in time to hear the William broadcast. My vacant expression, as I debated with myself whether or not to tell them that I wrote the stories, and reflected that they probably wouldn't believe me if I did, convinced them that I'd never heard of William before, and they hastened to enlighten me. They were still describing the stories and advising me to read them when we got to Victoria. I didn't tell them.
This unbelievably modest, prolific author is another fabulous example of an extraordinary alumnus of Royal Holloway Classics, particularly one of a generation of women who, strengthened by their experience of being part of the suffrage movement and community at Royal Holloway, went on to have independent, successful literary careers. So here's to a lot more of that, please, from Royal Holloway. If William were here, I think he might have a message for the grown-ups who are making decisions at Royal Holloway at the moment.
There's no sense, Nick. There's no sense at all. Grown-ups just need to do better thinking sometimes. There's no sense at all.